Hello and welcome to another video from FSPro. This is the FSPro guide to EZdok. EZdok is a camera add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It enables you to position and move cameras inside the cockpit, outside the aircraft, or to any location in the FSX world. This will give you unparalleled access to the visuals available in FSX. EZdok also provides features like dynamic head movements, random effects, and camera resonance. It also supports track IR. EZdok is available from Flight One software. The link is in the show notes below. It costs $34.95, that's £23.46, or €31.77 at today's rates. This will get you version 1.15. To install EZdok, simply follow the instructions provided. However, if you use Windows Vista, Windows 7 or Windows 8, do take special note of the following. By default, FSX is installed into the user-restricted Program Files directory. EZdok needs to write to your FSX files and the restriction prevents it from doing so. To get around this problem, you'll need to either turn user account control off or run the EZCA config file as administrator. If you've installed FSX in a folder other than the user-restricted Program Files location, you can ignore these steps. If you use FSX Steam Edition or Lockheed Martin's Prepared, you'll need to update EZdok to version 1.185. Frankly, even if you do use standard FSX, I still recommend that you update to version 1.185. For details on how to do that, please see my video on how to update EZdok to version 1.185. Now, start FSX and ensure that EZdok is available from the main menu. If it isn't, shut down FSX and follow the instructions in my video titled EZdok Errors Root Section in exe.xml. By applying that fix, you should get the menu option available, and start FSX again. For our initial configuration, we'll want to unmap the hat switch. With FSX running, we need to apply preliminary settings. So if you use a hat switch for view control, you'll need to disable it, otherwise it will interfere with EZCA views, resulting in a somewhat jarring visual effect. To disable it, go to Options, Settings, Controls, and click the Button/Keys tab. Choose your game controller from the drop-down and select Views from the Event category drop-down. Scroll through and look at the joystick assignments, which will be relatively few. If the assignment is to a pan action, press the Delete Joystick Assignment button. Next, we'll need to ensure that there's no conflict between EZdok and FSX key mappings. EZdok depends on certain key mappings. Some of those keys are already mapped in FSX by default, so we need to unmap them. The keys are A, S, Shift A, Shift S, numeric 0, numeric 1, numeric 2, numeric 3, and finally numeric 4. To unmap them, return to the Options, Settings, Controls, and the Button Keys tab. Select an empty action and click New Assignment. Choose one of the keys to be unmapped. If the window states this key or button is available, the key is already unmapped, so just push cancel and go to the next EZdok key to be unmapped. If the window states this event is currently assigned to, push OK. With the same event selected, push delete key assignment. That key is now unmapped. Repeat for the remaining EZdok keys until they're all unmapped. Next, connect your game controller devices and start the EZCA config application. Push OK on the reminder to connect your game controllers. Select the version of the simulator you're using, push OK on the dialog box telling you which version of SimConnect is being used, and click Configure FSX. This will install EZdok camera declarations in files related to the aircraft installed in your flight simulator. You might benefit from running this config every time you add a new aircraft. That's the initial configuration done. It's now time to go to FSX and hop into an aircraft. First, we need to be sure we can see the EZdok Studio. For this, you need to be in windowed mode. If you're not, push the Alt and Enter keys simultaneously. From the FSX main menu, select Add-ons, EZdok Camera, Show Studio, or use the shortcut Shift+D. Let's have a quick tour around the main form. First, the name of the aircraft. Every camera you set up in the virtual cockpit or on the outside of the aircraft will be stored against this aircraft only. Next, the view controls. PTP enables cameras to move smoothly from one location to another. Note that the camera you are leaving and the camera you're going to must both have PTP set. 360 removes any limits on how far you can rotate the camera around the vertical axis. POV enables you to move the camera position by using the arrow keys and page up, page down keys, an action that can be temporarily enabled with the middle mouse button. ML enables you to look around by moving the mouse, again an action that can be temporarily enabled with the middle mouse button. Z enables zoom via the mouse wheel, but note that this conflicts with those knobs that are operated by the mouse wheel. Finally, TIR enables track IR control for this camera. I find that a good default setting for the virtual cockpit is to enable PTP, POV and TIR only. Now, the effects controls. RND enables a random visual effect to simulate rough ground or slight turbulence. DHM enables dynamic head movements and is affected by acceleration, maneuvers and weather. CR is camera resonance and it's similar to DHM in that it simulates shaking of a camera attached to the aircraft. I tend not to use RND at all precisely because it is random. I use CR only for external aircraft shots where the camera appears attached to the aircraft body, and I use DHM only in the virtual cockpit for the pilot and co-pilot positions. In EZdok, cameras can be placed in one of three main areas: the virtual cockpit, the aircraft vicinity, and the world. Cameras created in a virtual cockpit can locate and move only within the virtual cockpit. There is a small exception to this rule which I'll cover later. Cameras created on the aircraft will always remain attached to the aircraft. Finally, cameras created in the world can be placed anywhere and would always remain where placed. Most of the standard aircraft in FSX have EZdok profiles pre-created. However, helicopters aren't well served in this regard, so we'll use the standard Bell 206 to serve as our example aircraft. To add or delete cameras in EZdok, you'll need to open the EZdok Studio. If EZdok isn't open, or you can't see it, use the shortcut Shift-D. To delete a camera, left-click on it to select it, then right-click and select Delete Current Camera. Let's do this for all the virtual cockpit we have created and start with a clean sheet. We'll add some virtual cockpit cameras first. If you're not already in the virtual cockpit, select Views, View Mode, Cockpit, EZCA VC Cam. Now, left-click on an empty grey bar under Virtual Cockpit, then right-click and select Add Camera. Give it a meaningful name. I'm going to call this one Captain. For View Control, select PTP, POV and TIR only. Now, with FSX selected, press numeric 2 and you're now in the EZdok edit mode. The first thing I advise doing is setting the zoom level. For helicopters, a wide field of view is needed, so I use 0.40. Next, I use the mouse so I'm looking straight down. I position the camera using the arrow keys so I'm directly over the captain's seat. I then use the mouse again to look directly behind me. I locate the view so that it's central on the headrest. I use the page up and page down keys so I'm at the right height. Finally, I use the mouse to look forward and centre the view in a sensible way. In this case, I'm looking forward with the base of my view aligned with the base of the instrument gauges. Press numeric 2 again to exit the EZdok edit mode. I'll now set the effects so that only DHM is selected. Let's set up a few other cameras as well, such as Copilot, Flight Control Unit, Overhead and Center Console. Now let's add an aircraft camera. The method is exactly the same, but I tend to change the zoom level to 1.0. By default, I'll add cameras to show the front, front left, left, rear right, right and front right. Occasionally, I'll add cameras to specific locations to view things like the undercarriage so I can record the undercarriage operating. In those circumstances, I make use of the camera resonance effect to give a realistic jostling effect. One really good tip for setting aircraft cameras is to use the acceleration key. By default, this is the key numeric 1. Pressing this key temporarily accelerates the speed at which the camera position moves. World cameras are added in exactly the same way as virtual cockpit and aircraft cameras, though it can sometimes be a little finicky. If you're experiencing problems with setting world cameras, check out my video on this topic. Details are in the show notes. One final thing on the topic of world cameras. As well as the standard acceleration key, there's a second, faster acceleration key which is numeric 4 by default. Really handy if you're needing to move large distances. And please note, you can change the speed of acceleration, and I'll show you how to do that in an upcoming section. Switching between different camera views is a simple case of left-clicking on the camera you want. However, EZdok also gives you the ability to activate any camera via a hotkey. If you're creating videos, using hotkeys is vital. Without them, you have to use the EZdok editor and click on the view you want. This has the unwelcome side effect of losing the sound in FSX while clicking on EZdok, and this disrupts your recording. Even if you don't record videos, using hotkeys can be beneficial because they increase immersion. You won't lose sound, and you won't have to interact with the EZdok Studio to select your chosen camera. Do be cautious about the keys that you use for hotkeys. If you use one that's already in use in FSX, you'll likely get both actions. So imagine my surprise when I used a hotkey for an EZdok view, only to have the flaps deploy and for one of them to get ripped away because I was travelling much faster than the flap extension speed. The aircraft started a vicious descending turn to the left, made worse because at the time it happened I had no clue what had occurred. The moral of the story is to unmap those keys that you want to use for EZdok hotkeys. Assigning hotkeys is a doddle. Simply left-click on the view you want to assign the hotkey to, then left-click in the shortcut KEYB box. Now press the key you want to assign. Note that if you click in the shortcut joystick box, you can assign a joystick button to a view if you wish. I tend to use the function keys for the virtual cockpit and control in conjunction with function keys for aircraft cameras. To keep things standard, I use the same key mappings for certain views. For example, my standard virtual cockpit key set consists of F1 for the overhead front, F2 for the overhead rear, F3 for the FCU, F4 for PFD and ND, F5 for the captain's MCDU, F6 for the centre console, F7 for the first officer's MCDU, F8 for the first officer, and finally F9 for the captain. Of course, some of those keys make no sense in some aircraft. For example, the overheads are pretty useless in a Cessna 172, so I simply omit them. However, by having a standard set of keys, I know that no matter what aircraft I'm in, pressing F9 puts me in the captain's seat. At this stage, we've set up our cameras and our hotkeys. Now, let's take a look at some general settings. From within EZdok Studio, select Options, General Settings. From the top of the form downwards, we have three sections relating to the virtual cockpit, aircraft, and world. In each of these sections, we can set the speed and smoothness for both the mouse and keyboard. The speed setting, as you would expect, sets how fast the camera moves. The smooth setting sets how deceleration is applied. A low smoothness setting means the camera stops immediately when repositioned and the key is released. A high smoothness setting means the camera keeps moving for a little while, decelerating gently after being repositioned. There are 4 presets for each of the sections titled 3D Game, Cinema, Walk and Float. I generally start with 3D Game and then make things a little smoother by adjusting the available valves. Note also the ability to change the speed of the acceleration keys. Under these first 3 sections, we have a control devoted to the speed of the hat switch, which I don't use, and an area devoted to the sound played when changing cameras or pressing the middle mouse button, which I do use. On a personal note, these sounds drive me crazy, so I take the nuclear option and click the off button for both. Next we have a set of 5 options, and I enable all of these except for disable middle mouse button. Note that many of the views and effects in EZdok can be adjusted. Simply right click on the button you're interested in and, if adjustments available, an editing window will pop up. So far we've used the default EZdok keys and buttons, but you can change these if you would like to. From within EZdok Studio, select Options, Define Keys and Buttons. To change any mapping, simply click in the box opposite the action and select the key you'd like to use. Note that EZdok is unaware of any keys that you've mapped in FSX, so once again, please ensure that the keys you use are available and not in use in FSX. My first pro tip relates to the previous camera and next camera options. At first, this only seems to work in the virtual cockpit. However, you can also get them to work for external shots of the aircraft. On the EZdok Studio main form, select the views that you want to cycle between and press the small C button to the right of the list. EZdok will now cycle through those cameras that have the C button enabled. My next pro tip relates to world cameras and getting them to follow your aircraft automatically. This tip requires you to shut FSX down and edit your cameras.cfg file, which is located in the same folder as FSX's configuration file. Now for Windows 7 and Windows 8 users, that's likely to be in C:\users, your username, app data, roaming, Microsoft, FSX. Snappy and easy to remember, isn't it? As ever, back up this file before making any edits so that should anything go wrong, you can restore it. In the cameras.cfg file, find the section titled Camera Definition.202 and change the line track equals none to track equals track. Please note that when world cameras are set up to follow your aircraft, panning with your joystick's pan button is not possible. My final pro tip relates to external panning shots around an aircraft. This is hideously difficult to do manually in EZdok because you have to get the speed right and balance the operation of the cursor keys and the mouse. You could do a lot of work with config files and editors and mess with settings, but there's a much easier way and it doesn't require EZdok at all. From the FSX main menu, select Views, View Mode, Outside, Spot. Now, set your mouse to fine grain control. There are a number of ways to do this, either via Windows or, in the case of my mouse, a RAT-TE, by selecting a button on the mouse. Now, just hold the middle mouse button and move the mouse slowly to one side to get a consistent external panning shot around the aircraft. That's it for this video. I do hope you found it either useful or informative, though preferably both. If you have, please push the like button below and help spread the word. For more videos on flight simulation, why not subscribe to the channel? It would be great to have you along for the flight. Until next time, thanks for watching.